So this video is for purple for 77 homework check. What you have to do is watch the explanation on how to do each type of problem, and then I'll give the answer, and if you need to make any corrections, you have to go back and rework the problem. Remember, we're really focusing on practicing how to show our skills. So if you get an answer that's not correct, don't just erase the answer and write down the correct answer and move on. Go back and rework the problem. If you need to go back and try and figure out how to get the problem solved correctly, go back and re-watch the video and watch the explanation, and then try to apply that to solving the problem the correct way the second time around. So give it all a try. We'll start with the first part on the next slide. So it says for part 7, to start out the first problem, the instructions say to make a ratio table. So I at least know that that's where I have to start with solving the problem. So make my ratio table. And it says that 7/8 of the students passed the test. So if we know that there's a group of students who passed and did not pass, and then there's all the students who took the test. Those are my three groups, that there's students who passed the test, students who did not pass the test, and then the total group of students who were able to take the test. So if I set up a fraction number family, because they gave us a fraction for students who passed, students who did not pass, and all students who took the test. So students who passed were 7/8. And I know that my all number has to equal a fraction of 1. So in a fraction number family, my bottom numbers have to match. So I know that my bottom number here has to be 8. And in order for it to be equivalent to 1, that means that my top number and my bottom number have to match. So in order to figure out how many kids did not pass, I still have the same denominator, because in a fraction number family, all of the bottom numbers have to match. And then I just solve straight across tops. 8, 7, 1. All right, so that's what I'm going to fill in to my ratio table. So 7, 1, and 8. The other information that they gave us was that there were 400 students. So I'm going to put that because all students, that's one of my groups. So then I have to set up a ratio in order to figure out what number of students passed and what number of students did not pass. So I have to choose the one that has the two numbers. So one of these has to be all. And then I'll choose not pass just because it's right above it. If you choose pass, that's totally fine too. So for not pass, now I'll fill in the ratio numbers. Those are the first numbers that we have here. So not pass is 1 and all is 8. And we know that there's 400 students in the all group. So here it says 8 times a number I don't know equals 400. So because I don't know the number, that means that I cannot do the multiplication. So I cannot do 8 times nothing or something I don't know. We have to work backwards. If you can't do the multiplication, then you have to work backwards and do division. So 400 divided by 8 will give us 50. Sorry. Okay, so 50. And that means that 50 is going to go on the top. And when I work this straight across, 1 times 50 equals 50. So I know now the number that I can plug back in. So if 50 goes with not pass, so that means that here 50 kids. So in order to figure out how many kids passed, I'm going to have to subtract, because if this is my number family going down this way, that means that this is a big number, small number. I'm missing a small number, so I subtract. So when I do 400 minus 50, that means that 350 goes here. So I'm still not done with A. I have to tell you how many students passed the test. So I look back at my table. I know that passed 350 were the total number of students who passed the test. Okay? And then they want to know how many students did not pass the test. So looking back at the table, not passing the test, there were 50 students. Okay? So what I'm going to do for B, it says that the ratio of aces to other cards in a deck is 1 to 12. There are 48 cards that are not aces. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you the answers to the questions right here. And if your answers to your questions here don't match what I wrote down, I want you to go back and rework all of these steps in order for you to match what I put here. So for number 1, you should have 4 cards that are aces. And you should also have the total cards in all are 52. So if you didn't get 4 or 52 for those answers, I want you to go back and rework all of these steps because it's important to know how to take it from the fraction number family into the ratio table, into the ratio, in order to solve it all the way down. So pause the video, make any corrections that you need to, and when you're done, come back for the next section. All right, so for part 8, I'm just going to write the numbers that are above. So the way that you solve this is that if I have a whole number of 4, I need to know how many parts would I have if I had 8 parts in the unit. So if I had 8 parts in the unit, how many parts would be shaded? That's what we're really looking for here. So if I had to figure out 8 times 4, that would give me my top number. So if I did 8 times 4, my number up here would be 32. Same thing over here, 50 times 4 would get your number up here, which is 200. And the last one here, so 125 times 4 will get you 500. Okay, check your answers there. If you're not sure how we got to those answers, make sure to ask. For B over here, if I did 12 times 3, we're going to get 36. On the bottom here, they have 36 times the whole number that's out here, 3. So 36 times 3 is 108. Okay, and then over here, I've got 180 times 3. And 180 times 3 is 540. All right, check to make sure that you did it correctly. We'll come back for the next part on the next slide. All right, so for part 9, they want you to make a table. So we have to take what we are able to find out from the word problem and make our table that looks like this. We have to remember where our names and where our numbers go, and then be able to very carefully solve to make sure that we're able to answer the questions with the correct information. So first it says there are black-tailed deer and white-tailed deer. So because those are the 2 things that are named first, those are going to be what goes on top. Remember, if you come in first, you're on top. So we've got, I'm going to just do a BT for black-tailed deer, and then here for WT for white-tailed deer. Okay, and then this is for total. So make sure that your names match. If your names aren't matching where I'm at, flip them around so that we can all make sure that our numbers are in the right place. And then the locations are Elk Ridge and Horn Mountain. So here I've got Elk Ridge and Horn Mountain. And this one is for total. All right. It says that the total number of white-tailed deer, so I'm going to be looking in this column here for white-tailed deer. The number of white-tailed deer for both is 400. So under white-tailed deer, I'm not just looking here. I need both locations for white-tailed deer. So 400 is going to go in the bottom middle. And then it says here that at Horn Mountain, there are 48 black-tailed deer. So I'm going to look across Horn Mountain, and it says that there are 48 black-tailed deer. So 48 goes over here. And then the rest of the problem says at Elk Ridge, there is a total of 210 deer. So here for Elk Ridge, we're not just talking about black-tailed deer or white-tailed deer. We're going to talk about both deer together. And there was a total at Elk Ridge of 210. And then it says here that at Elk Ridge, there are 145 black-tailed deer. So here's black-tailed deer at Elk Ridge, and it says that there are 145. So these are the important ones to make sure that you are able to read the problem and pull the information into the correct squares. So check first to make sure that these numbers are correct, and then pause the video if you need to, and here I'm going to fill in the rest of the numbers just so that you can double check what you've got. Okay, and then for the questions, because of course we're not done till we answer our questions, for A, it says how many white-tailed deer are there at Horn Mountain? So if I'm looking down here, if I have white-tailed deer, and I'm not looking here, I need Horn Mountain. White-tailed deer at Horn Mountain are 335. For B, they're asking you, are there more white-tailed deer or black-tailed deer at Elk Ridge? So here's Elk Ridge, and I'm going to be looking for comparing if there's more black-tailed deer or white-tailed deer. So in Elk Ridge, there's more black-tailed deer because 145 is greater than 65. So black-tailed deer at Elk Ridge. All right, for C, it says, at which place are there fewer white-tailed deer? So when I'm looking at the table, I'm looking for white-tailed deer, and I'm trying to compare whether it was Elk Ridge or Horn Mountain that had fewer. So comparing the two numbers, I see that 65 is the smaller number. So 65 is going to be, oh no, they're not even asking for the number. That's why you read it carefully. They're asking for the name of the place. So as I see here that the number goes to Elk Ridge. So the answer for C is Elk Ridge. Okay, and then for D, the last one is asking, what's the total number of deer for both locations? So since they didn't tell us black or white, we're going to assume that it's a total deer, black and white-tailed deer, total for both locations. So we're not just asking about the deer in Elk Ridge or Horn Mountain, but both deer in both locations is 593. So check your answers to make sure that they match. Make sure that your answers, that you read the table correctly. Remember that if you got an answer incorrect, don't just erase it and write the correct answer in. Remember, we want to rework the problem so that we can see where we went wrong on it. All right, so pause the video, do what you need to do, and then come back. So for these division problems, you copy them down, and then it says to estimate the answer by rounding the number that you divide by. So if this is the number that we're dividing by, we need to round it to estimate where to even begin, how we go into 779. So I'm going to rewrite this a little bit bigger. There we go. Okay. So what they mean by rounding the number that you divide by. So this is the number we divide by, and I need to round it to the tens place to figure out that I can estimate what my number up here is supposed to be. So if I can see here that I've got 9 is in my tens place, I'm going to look next door and I see a 1. This is not 5 or above. I asked myself, is this 5 or above? The answer is no. So whenever the answer is no, that means that this stays the same. Okay? So now in my head I've got 9, and I have to ask myself, about how many times can 9 go into 77? Because we know 9 can't go into 7. So I'm going to look at 77. So when I think of my 9's numbers, I need to think about how close can I get without going over. So I know that 9 times 8 is 72. That's pretty good because 9 times 9 is 81, and 81 would be too big. So we know that 9 times 8. So 8, that would be a pretty good place to start. So then this is where I do my 8 times 91, and I figure out 8 times 91 is 728, and I do my subtraction, and when I do my subtraction, 1, 5, I've got 51. So I don't have any more numbers to divide in here, so that means that my 51 goes up top as a remainder. So I've got 51 over 91. So for A, you should have 8 and 51 over 91. For B, your final answer should be a 6 and a 3549. All right, if this is not what you got, I want you to go back into your Notability and rework the problem, showing all of your work that you were able to get to this number. If you come back to show it to me and like this number isn't correct or this number isn't correct, I'll know that we didn't go back and work it up back all the way from the beginning. So take your time, pause the video, and go back and rework it if your answer for B doesn't match or your answer for A was not the same as what we just reworked here. Feel free to go back and re-watch the video. Okay, so for the last part, for part 11, we have to figure out the decimals or the fractions or the mixed numbers for numbers that they give us. So first, let's look at 38 over 10, and let's talk about how to make that into a decimal. So if I know that if I make a decimal, the first number after the decimal is the tenths place. And here I can see that that matches my denominator here. And so if my ending number is tens, I know that I can take this 38 and I can fit it in here somewhere so that there's one number after the decimal. So the number here will be 3.8. The same way that it'll work here, that if I need to know for a mixed number, how many times can 10 go into 38, I know if I'm counting by tens, I can say 10, 20, 30. 30 is pretty close. The next tens number is 40, and 40 is too big because we only need 38. So if we know that 10 can go into 38 3 times with 8 left over, because I got to 30, right? 10 times 3 is 30, but I needed 8 more, so it'll be 3 and 8 tenths. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fill in the rest of the numbers here. If yours don't match, this is where you should find either me or Miss Serenge and have us explain to you how to work, because this is something that we've done for a little while now, and if we still have questions about it, we need to make sure to ask. Okay, so these are all the answers for part 11, so pause the video here, take a look to make sure that your answers match, and if you're not sure why they don't match, make sure to ask a teacher. When you are done with this part, make sure to check in to show a teacher that all of your corrections were made.